Hey guys, welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your usual host, Bobby Jones, but today we have an episode that's a bit different. Matthew Newton is going to be hosting a special guest who happens to wear a whole lot of hats. I really think you're going to enjoy this one, so let's get to it. Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today, and now on with the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, CRNA and real estate investor Matthew Newton. Now, normally on the Plan B CRNA podcast, most of our guests are medical professionals who have found creative sources of income outside of their clinical job. But today is a treat. Today, our guest is an impressive female entrepreneur and role model in her community who runs not one, but 4 separate businesses. I'm proud to introduce our Crystal. Crystal, hey, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
So tell me a little bit about this. You own 4 businesses. What are your businesses briefly, and what exactly do they focus
Okay, so the first one I have is Country Gold Cafe. It's a full service restaurant in Taylorsville, Georgia. And then I have Crystal Clear Auto Marketing. It's an auto marketing agency, and we target new car dealerships. We like to do host campaigns in their store and do various forms of marketing to help them get more cars sold per month. And then I have a nonprofit foundation called From God Inc. Supplies various help for different types of people going through hardships or needing help, with prescriptions or anything their need may be. And then I also have a small gun business called Wholesale International.
on? That is a lot of things. Sounds like a very busy person. So, I mean, like with
Simply.
all these responsibilities you have, I have my one of my most important questions I ask everybody is the question from City Slickers 1, where they hold up their finger and they say, what's your one thing? What's the reason that you choose to do all these? What's your driving force behind taking on so many different roles?
To retire early and be able to travel and live the rest of my life just serving God through my mission work. So that was very big for me to try to make as much as I can while I'm young so I can live when I get a little bit older. So
I love it. Great strides can be made when there's a resolute purpose behind them. So you want to serve God and live your best life it's always really refreshing. So let's talk about the Country Gold Cafe. I think everyone listening to this podcast at one time has sat out with their spouse or a group of friends at their local bar or favorite restaurant and said, you know what, I'm gonna open a restaurant. I can do this. I have a good theme, and it's just something that they always want to run with. And then, that's after 2 beers, that's the extent of, there's free. But realistically, running a restaurant, from what I understand, isn't necessarily easy. I think statistically 90% of restaurants fail in the first year. What made you want to own a restaurant? I mean, you started yours from scratch. That's all sorts of challenge. Did you consider buying a franchise? What made you want to go with opening your own restaurant?
I'm one of those people that kind of jump and then, just swim. And I seen an opportunity. I used to own a small custom cake and catering business in very small scale, operated from my basement type deal. And then I'm, of course, an entrepreneur. So I see this building sitting empty that used to be a restaurant that sat here for like 20 years and done pretty well. And so it intrigued me. I want to know who owned it, and I put a message on Facebook and I was just like, Hey, does anyone know who owns the old Utter's Delights building? And Ricky Cole that owns Taylor Transport reached out to me and he was like, it's Vicky Tate. And he gave me her number and I called her up and she warned me. I gotta say she did warn me, but she also gave me a deal I couldn't refuse. And so I just decided to go full force with it, not knowing anything of what I was getting into. And that's how I got where I am now.
Are you leasing your space or did you buy it?
I'm leasing it. The plan, there's a 3-year plan to buy. So it's going to be leased for about 3 years before I buy into it.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to pretend I don't know much about restaurants. So correct me if I'm wrong. You open your restaurant. It went really smoothly. It practically runs itself. And now you are very rich. You fly everywhere on your private jet. You spend all your time on your yacht and it's incredibly easy. Very little time spent on your part. Is that how it really is?
Well, that's the way I was thinking it would be, but not quite exactly how that's happened so far. So we are 2 months in of it being open. I'm about 6 months in from when the process began. And about $80,000 out of my pocket is where I'm at investment wise to get up and going. Much more than that now that it's open. But of course, now it's, what I like to call recycling money. So it's like, it's making more money than I've ever seen, but every bit that comes in goes right back out. And so it's super scary in that aspect. That gives me some anxiety, not knowing what I was about to get into. And then just there's so much to it. Just there's been nights that I literally didn't get to sleep because I had so much I had to get done before those doors opened back up. And there's been days I took a nap out back in my car just to try to get through. So it's been tough.
It's impressive, from, conception, you've been up and going. I mean, it sounds like you started, took you 4 months to kind of plan and get everything out. That's great. And honestly, to be only out 80 to, 100,000 will say, hey, open a restaurant from scratch is great. I know most businesses, I think it's roughly 3,000 a seats, like what the typical restaurant takes to open, anywhere from 275 to 400 is the average in America. Even if you were to go like the easy route and franchise, I want to say like some of the minimum franchise fees for like Dunkin' Donuts and, Denny's and all those start at 30,000. Then it's usually about 200 to 300,000 for your personal capital. And then then they make you be liquid. I think usually another 200,000 on top of that. So, it sounds like you kind of pulled everything off really, really well and done a good job in your planning. So as far as, opening a restaurant goes, logistically, what kind of challenges do you have? As far as like choosing location, how's it been staffing? Is there a lot of equipment that you had to get? Is there any crazy government regulations that you had to find out about?
So staffing is very interesting. There's days where they show up and they show out, and there's days where they call out. And, there's sometimes 3 or 4 will call out the shift. I have 30 employees and it's wild on those days because the public gives you no grace. They expect their food nice in, they want it hot, they want it perfect. And, you know, God forbid anyone has a call out that day, which happens often because you give it no grace in this industry, unless it's someone that truly understands and has been there. Most people, they're quick to leave you a bad review or go talking about you on their social platforms. So that's been very challenging. And it's such a personal deal to me because the restaurant is a tribute to my grandfather. It's my family's, recipes that's been handed down for generations. So every time I get a bad mark, it's very personal to me, which I've got to learn to get over because you can't be in this business and take things like that personally. So that's been a challenge for me. And then I'm in a building that's been here over 20 years. And so some of the equipment's been here that long. And I didn't anticipate the repairs that were going to take place. Like, it's been a lot. There's been at least one piece of equipment weekly, sometimes the same piece of equipment multiple times that's had to have something updated on it or replaced. And so that's been a lot.
So as far as like your staff, for instance, calling in, when you have, four, we'll say your waitresses calling in sick or for whatever reason, you throw on an apron and go wait tables? Do you sit in your office? How do you handle that kind of situation?
I haven't got to sit in my office in the 2 months I've been open. I haven't got to take care of a lot of the owner duties that I need to be doing because I have I have been wearing every hat. There's been days I've been in the dish pit. There's been days I've been on the cash register, on the cook line, in the prep, waitressing, hosting, answering calls, you name it. I've done it to help us survive so far.
Well, I mean, and that's the reason you'll be successful. One of the biggest things I notice when people get in positions of power where they open a business, they do think, "Hey, I'm gonna do this, and from day one, I'm gonna be rich, and it's gonna be great." And they don't realize that no job is beneath you. If it means you go scrub a floor or clean a bathroom, it's that customer experience is what you're going for. I know when I got into Airbnbs and rentals, like I've done things I never thought I would do. I can't tell you how much I have YouTubed and learned how to fix and repair and do these things. Because I mean, if you're not involved in every aspect of your business, it has a greater, like who's going to care more than you? Because this is your baby.
Absolutely. I tell people that I went to Google University because every time there's something new I don't know, I'm there Googling it or YouTubing the video to figure out how to take care of the problem. So
So do you happen off the top of your head happen to have any projections? What does a I guess a country gold cafe, what does a restaurant like yours make the gross income projection for the year if everything were to go
yes,
how it is?
if we stay where we are headed right now in sales, we will do about 1 million to 1.5, possibly 2 million. Another local restaurant that's very similar to mine. They're doing about 2 million a year in sales. And so that's where I'm projecting to be. But profit wise, I don't have any data yet. Like right now, it's like I said, it's just, everything that comes in is going right back out. So that's something I'm going to have to figure out. And when I got into this, just me from a business standpoint, I'm thinking 2 million. Okay, let's go. I didn't care what it took. I'm like, let's do this. Little did I know that was just going to, be a recycling money thing where everything going in was going back out. So that's been, you know, there's this past week, I actually had to pull money from my personal checking to cover what went out. We had more going out than coming in. So that was the first week I've had like that. That was kind of scary. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to ramp marketing back up for sure right now.
Well, and the thing is that a lot of people don't understand. Most businesses, very, very common, are not profitable for the first 5 years. Now, that's not your goal, of course. Like
Right.
in the first year or two, yeah, if you got to put some money in, that's fine. As long as, because the thing is you know what you're doing, you have your plans, and nobody's going to throw money in lost cause. So as long as everything's going as planned, if you have to put a couple bucks in here and there, it's fine because right now you're establishing the foundation of a strong business that hopefully in 2 years, you'll be able to have some great managers in place and be able to take a little bit of a step back. And then in 5 years, even more structures in place that you'll be able to take a step back and you can focus on the other things that are important in your life. Well, yeah, you still have a main business, but this way, when you build up a good foundation, it'll last for a long time.
Absolutely.
So you said that one of the local places has $2 million in revenue. Did you talk to the other business owners in your area and get any tips and tricks from them? How did you find that rough number out?
I did. I have a good friend that has owned a local country cuisine business there into his entire life. It was handed down by his parents. So we had a meeting one night and he just kind of went over some numbers with me. And like I told you, got me super excited. I didn't realize how much was behind the scenes. I just heard that initial number. And so he's been a great asset to me. He's now sold the company and the new owner has been as well. And then I didn't realize it's almost like their own little tribe, the whole restaurant industry. Like most of them had been through so much, bless their heart, like they want to see you succeed. And so they will give you any tips. I've had people reaching out to give me tips, to give me maintenance people's numbers that are great or people that I can trust with this or that. And it's just like a whole networking thing behind the scenes. So I found that to be very comforting. And then, there is an occasional restaurant that's near you that gets jealous when you're, especially in grand opening, you're just slammed and their parking lot's empty. So I've dealt with stuff like that too, but most of it, the majority of people in this industry want to see you succeed because they've worn the same shoes that you're wearing. So
Yeah, so, it's interesting. I, for one, love when other business owners encourage other business owners to succeed. But it's hard out there, so, we definitely want to surround yourself with other givers. But I read an interesting study a little while back that was talking about why do you always see a CVS across from a Walgreens? Because, but if Walgreens is there first, why would CVS ever want to open up, right across the street? And it's the same idea that you see a Coke and a Pepsi machine beside each other. Like, so theoretically, according to the study I read, that if there was one Coke machine, it made $100 a day, and then you put a Pepsi machine right beside it. Logically, you would think that they would each make $50 a day, but realistically, both machines would make $100 a day because we'll see two machines and they have two options. They no longer say, do I want to get a drink? They say, do I want a Coke or Pepsi? In their mind, it reframes the idea. So when they see your restaurant with another restaurant, maybe a couple miles away, it's not so much of, do I want this? It's which do I want, which is really great. So theoretically, you're actually helping the business out for your entire, which is awesome.
the former owner of this business, something she shared with me right before I opened that, because I asked her then, I didn't know, and I'm like, your competition to your surroundings, I said, are people jealous? Are they rude? And she said, she said, the majority of it, she said, you want to think of it like this. She said, okay. She said, when you're hungry, one night you want Mexican, and one night you want American, and one night you want country cooking from this store, the next night you want it over here. She said, so we all do that as people. We all have, whatever flavor we're in the mood for that night. And so most of them don't look at it like a competition because they know if they're eating with Country Gold Cafe on a Monday, they may be at Burger King on a Tuesday. So we all kind of get our piece of the pie. And I like the way she worded that because I was like, that's so true. Just, from what I do know, I do crave different foods, different nights of the week. So
Well, I love it. It definitely is great. So you wear many hats doing this, and it's all really challenging. How are you managing your current work-life balance?
I have a 10-year-old and bless his heart, he's been so patient. And after school, some days I'll pick him up and he'll say, Mommy, I'm not going to the restaurant today. Just take me home. And then other days he'll come and he's so cute. He wants to, all of my staff calls him boss when he walks through the door. So he, of course, loves that. He walks around and he's like trying to help the waitresses or he's sweeping the floors. And that's the extent of my relationship with him right now. So I'm working hard to fix that problem. I just hired a new GM that starts tomorrow when the doors open. And so I'm so thankful and grateful for that because I think that's finally going to give me the life back that I can have with him. So he's going to close the restaurant every day and I'll be off by the time my son gets out of school so I can get him and just, have dinner with him and, go on play dates and do all the things that we used to do. So I'm excited about that. But as far as balancing anything else, like I just literally have to take time to do certain things to even pay bills because, like, I'm just exhausted and like there's not enough of me to go around for sure.
Yeah, it is definitely hard having that balance, I'll tell you. So running a restaurant, you said that customers don't give you much grace when it comes to any kind of mess ups. Have you had any interesting customer interactions or celebrities stopping in or anything fun like that?
We did have a NASCAR's Ken Schrader. He came by to eat with us. And then I did a personal visit to one of the singers of the group Alabama, and he autographed some stuff for us. And so that was cool. And then Karen Waldrop, she signed a bunch of different decor from her music career for us to hang up in here. So that was really cool.
Very nice. That sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like any Country Gold Cafe, stop on in and you might run into a local celebrity.
Right, right. It's been great.
So one of the other things that has just really intrigued me about you is your propensity to give back. And I personally love that. I've always been very involved with charity. So I love when I hear people like to pick a charity and go, that you took a different route and started your own charity. And that is all kinds of impressive to me. So tell me a little bit about your charity you started and what's its goals and mission.
Yeah. So From God Inc. I started it this past April 2022. And I'm still with that. It's another venture that I'm learning as I go. And I've kind of had to put it on the back burner right now with the restaurant because it's taken all the demand. But I do plan on, getting back into that full swing as soon as things lighten up a bit. I had a vision about this back in like 2010, and I knew I wanted to help people. And so God gave me this vision, and I just thought, that's crazy. Like, I don't even know how to do things on that scale. I don't know anything about big business or how to run a nonprofit. So I always just thought it would be like a pipe dream type thing. And things have just happened mysteriously throughout the past 13 years. That's just lined me up to actually be able to do it. Just strange things like I put my children in private school, and they contact me wanting to know if I would help them start a nonprofit for scholarships for them. And I'm thinking, why would they ask me that? I don't know how. I was like, but maybe that, will help me figure out. And it indeed did. So that, I went through a relationship that was extremely toxic, but the man I was married to was a big businessman, multimillionaire. And so I learned so much about big business and thinking on a grand scale and handling large amounts of money. And, everything's just led to the next thing. So even right now, with me being so discouraged with this restaurant, I think about the other hardships I went through and where they've led me in life. And I'm like, you're being shaped for something bigger. So just hold on.
Well, it goes a lot into that. My first question is why do you do what you do? And if you have a purpose, it makes everything in life really easy. Even the most challenging things, if you know what you're doing, serves a higher cause or has a good moral behind it. I mean, isn't that why we do anything at all? So
Right.
as far as nonprofits go, I guess for our listeners, can you give me a quick, brief rundown of if I wanted to start a nonprofit, how would I go about doing this?
So with me, I thought of the foundation name. I wanted to do From God Inc. because I know that this business, everything that is blessed was from God. And I want everyone to know that's part of the mission that helps coming from God. He's blessing that. So that was my name. And then I just contacted the Secretary of State and filled out the forms to get all that started. And I had to form my officers. And so I got that ready. And then my bylaws, I had to file for 501(c)(3) status so that we could be tax exempt. And then after that, I just applied to have my registration that we were tax exempt, and we were off and running after that. And it's so cute. The people I have let know about the story. There's been some that just say, one guy called and he said, "How much was it, your filing fee?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, I want to give you $100." And he's like, "Well, you start the checking account with this $100." He's like, "So that I can be the first one that put money into that account." So he did that. And then I had a great friend who donated like $6,000. So I've already been able to help some people with, rent costs and things that they were struggling with, various hardships. And so that was much appreciated. And that's kind of the extent I've went with it so far. There's still a lot I've got to learn, but it's definitely my passion. It's why I want to retire early, is because I want to run that full time, and I want something out there that's available not just to, pediatrics or cancer patients, but to anyone going through a hard time. Because I've been on my own since I was 17, and there were times I was like not knowing how I was going to make it. And there's, been some great people in my life that's helped me throughout. And I just want to give back that way. So
But that's excellent. I love it. It sounds like the community's kind of really stepped up and helped you get started with this. So from, I guess, inception to getting a paperwork saying you're official, how long did it take you to start the nonprofit?
I want to say it was like 3 months. I kept thinking, okay, I'm not going to be approved to be 501(c)(3). And I had heard from other people that it's hard to get that status. And so I just, I can't just check it in and checking it on. It's like, I don't know if something was going on behind the scenes, but like, it was like, I never was approved, never was approved. And then all of a sudden one day I got the documentation that we were approved and that I was good to go. And so that's where we went.
So has there been anything in the restaurant business or with your nonprofit that's kind of surprised you along the way? anything that's like kind of inspired you or you found out you didn't like in the process?
The nonprofit, it inspired me to it was good for me to just see people's heart for things like that and their willingness to give, knowing that it was tax exempt and that, they could get a tax deduction with their business with that. That was really nice to know. Cause, the day and age we live, people can be, a little rough and lack some heart, but then things like that bring you to people that are still out there that are good people and want to help. And so that was very inspiring to me. And then as far as the restaurant, I have came in contact with just so many wonderful people and so many people in the community that are excited about us being here. And they've given us decor for the walls and stuff they've personally had autographed. Or I had one man bring me 1980 Coca-Cola bottles that were really cool because the store is also decorated in Coca-Cola. And, and just people come in and tell me about the town and the history and why they love living here. So it's all been a big blessing. And even I take the bad like a grain of salt and I just try to improve when we do have complaints. But for the majority, we're extremely blessed and we're very grateful. So
People want to donate to your charity. How can they find you and how can they donate?
I really got to get all that set up better because right now it's just been word of mouth. They could contact me through email, I guess right now, or phone number, and we could set up some things. I'm still working on having a website built, so I really need to get that set up. Right now, they would probably just have to contact me personally. So
And for our listeners, where specifically is your restaurant located? Because I know they're all going to want to stop in.
it's 2351 Highway 113, and that's in Taylorsville, Georgia, 30178.
I love it. Very, very specific. Be sure to map quest it. So, all right. One of my other most important questions I always ask everybody, and as a business entrepreneur and somebody who has, there are so many different hats on, tell me, what is your biggest failure in career, your investment, your life, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest failure would probably be just trying to find balance with certain things. I've been fortunate in I haven't lost a lot financially so far. I'm out a lot on this restaurant right now, but I do think it's going to be a great business that turns a good profit. But I've had failed relationships throughout the years, just trying to handle the juggle I have with 4 businesses. And there's been times, that I've neglected, just like I'm doing right now, relationships with my children. And so for me, my biggest failure would be balance. And I'm still to this day working on trying to find a better balance with everything. So
Okay. So tell me about your plan 2 years and 5 years down the line. What's your plan for life, your career, your businesses? And we're going to check back in with you and find out and see how everything went.
right. 2 years from now, I hope to be turning a profit with this restaurant. I would love to see that. I really think with as much equipment as I had in here and with me not having to finance a whole lot, I can foresee us turning a profit in this first year. So I think we're going to be good in that aspect. 2 years from now, I'm hoping to be doing substantially better than I am right now and be more efficient. 5 years from now, I would love to be completely retired from my businesses, have key people in place that are running those that keep making money and just solely concentrating on the nonprofit foundation and building it. Ultimately, we would like to see that have youth centers for children, places that they can go, safe places to, communicate with other children and have staffed counselors, Christian counselors that they can talk to if they're having problems at home or at school, stuff they can't voice with other people. We'd like to have that available to them. So that's definitely the ultimate goal. And I definitely want to travel. That's like my favorite thing in the world. So that's where I'd like to be in 5 years.
I love it. It sounds like you have a good mission and good reasons for why you do what you do. So my last question is, what actions do you currently take to better your mind, your body? Do you read? What do you do for Crystal to keep yourself fresh?
My favorite thing that I do is I start my day from a point of gratitude. So no matter, how I'm feeling emotionally or what's going on with the restaurant or what fires I'm putting out, I start every morning just I forget all of that and I thank God for the good. And that just kind of puts my perspective on for the day. Like that sets the tone that, even though this is going on over here, I have so much to be thankful for. And so I do that. I like to do Bible study and meditate. There's books that I've read throughout the years that have substantially helped me with things. Right now, reading's not an option for me, but I definitely will get back to that when things slow down a little bit.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you have a good handle on things, and you definitely have your head in the right space. When you say, putting out fires and kitchen fires, literally and figuratively,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
but it's good to be able to juggle all these things. I'm personally one of those kinds of people that I always like to overpack my schedule, and everything will always sort itself out and work out the way it was intended. So
Right.
for our listeners, 'cause I'm sure we are going to have questions for you. People are always interested in starting their own charities and running businesses and all. How can they get a hold of you? How can they reach you offline?
I would love for them just to email me at the restaurant email. It's the one I'm most active with right now. So that would be countrygoldcafe@gmail. If they would just contact me there, that would be great. If there's some that you personally know and you wanted to share my number, I think that would be fine too.
Oh, shit. Awesome. Well, Crystal, this has been great having you on. It's always refreshing to hear from a different career path. I love everything you've done, and I love the fact that you're giving back to your community. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I thought that this was a fascinating look into the restaurant business, particularly coming from someone like Crystal, who didn't have the experience, but she jumped in anyway. And she's really in the thick of it right now, right? But that's kind of what entrepreneurs tend to do. There's fear for sure, but there's also a belief that you can learn on the job and become successful even while you're gaining that experience. But being successful in business isn't the only goal for Crystal, because she's also passionate about helping people. Her faith drives her to serve a higher calling. But what really amazed me was how many people have actually been willing to help her become successful. And I believe that people truly want to help others. And so she's been able to kind of use those people and connections to magnify her own impact on the community around her. I mean, when we all work together toward common goals, we can actually accomplish pretty great things. That's going to do it for the show. Make sure you check out the show notes for Crystal's email and her restaurant info so that you can find out more about her journey and her nonprofit. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Until next time, stay safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.